Hello, hello. It is December 14th, 2024, and it feels like it's been a while, but this is the first Brooklyn Game Night chess recap I'm doing. I will say that we did meet on Tuesday, what day was that? 10th? But I didn't actually play any league games. I only played a handful of Blitz and I think Rapid, and then I had to leave really early, so I didn't make a video for that day. But I did put out finally the USCF rated tournament I did play that Sunday prior to that Tuesday. So today, though, again, I only got to play like 3 Rapid games, one of which I didn't record. Oops. But I'll show you the 2 I did play against Emmanuel. Yeah, let's just get right into it. So, game 1, I have the black pieces. He starts with knight f3. Funny backstory is me and Anthony played a blitz warm-up game prior to me playing him, or playing Emmanuel. I don't know why we swapped, but, whatever. And Anthony also just randomly played already, and I was like, geez, what's going on today? Why is everyone playing this? But I decided to just play f5 and go into a Dutch kind of situation. I figured he would probably play like d4, c4, knight c3, and kind of just like transpose back. But he goes with d3, which is a little strange. I didn't really know what he was going for there. Maybe like a King's Indian attack, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. So I continued with knight f6, and then he played bishop d2. So now I'm like really confused. Like, is he playing some kind of weird Indian style game, but with the white pieces? Like, I don't know what's going on here, but whatever. I'll figure it out. Let me just stick to my typical development. So e6, knight c6, knight c3, bishop e7, and then he breaks out with e4. So in a weird way, you can call this a Staunton gambit, except he's not really gambiting a pawn. He's just attacking f5. So, okay, maybe not a gambit. But he is trying to break my f-pawn. I figured, okay, well, I probably should take. I don't really think that letting him take, and then I take back with the e-pawn. Something about that position didn't seem right to me, so I just decided to take here. He takes back. Knight c6, bishop e2. Here I played d6 because I didn't want him to play e5 right away. I thought if he manages to play e5 successfully, then it's going to be really annoying for me. I'd have to do something like this, and then maybe he can defend the pawn some more somehow, or maybe he'll just develop, but it's a small waste of time, so didn't really want to allow that. I mean, he totally could have played e5 here, but he didn't. So he played bishop e2. I played d6, castles, e5. I'm like not really closing the center per se, but I am preventing him from pushing the pawn, which I thought was going to give me a lot of trouble, but maybe it's not actually that bad. Computer says that knight g5 is the next follow-up. Knight g5, queen d7, bishop c4. And then I can't castle, I guess, so maybe that's part of the problem. So, okay. He just continues with h3, a move that he very much would play. I know he just likes putting his pawns there, so whatever. Bishop e6, rook e1, queen d7. So you'll notice here I'm not really castling right away. I totally have the option to castle long and kind of just start pushing my pawns, and I thought, okay, well, I have 2 bishops vaguely pointing in his direction. My knight can jump in. I already have a rook here that can try to attack. So I thought this might be a good attacking position here if I castle long. Alternatively, I can castle short and just use the open f-file for my rook and maybe get some play like that. But after bishop b5, I was like, you know what, screw it. Well, okay, no, actually I forgot. I did play a6 first just to see what he would do with the bishop. He retreats it. And here I was like, all right, you know what? Screw it. I want to attack long castle. Now, clearly it's not a good move, but I mean, can you blame me? Like, my position looks fine. His position looks fine. Now we're just going to go at it. Queen e2, b4, bishop e3, all good moves. According to the computer, bishop e3 makes a lot of sense because you're starting to eye the open diagonal. Queen e2, I guess, is like vaguely supporting some kind of hook sacrifice there. And I mean b4, just obviously b4. And even though it's a gambit, he can just play rook b1. And now my position looks a little scary because it's like, you have this. This is still pinned. You can try to come in with your knight, maybe like queen e2. So, yeah, don't really want to allow that. I did continue, though, with h6 in this position. I'm trying to start my own pawn storm with a6, g5. He plays b4, g5, b5. And I thought, okay, I can just take this. He takes back, and yeah, this pin will perpetually be here. But at some point, I'll be able to move my queen, and then I'll be able to move my knight, and then everything's okay. So takes. I played knight h5. I don't really remember what I was trying to accomplish with knight h5. Because when I look at it now, it just doesn't do anything, and it's a huge waste of time. I probably should have went with g4 immediately. Maybe even sack a pawn and try to open up his king. So, yeah, knight h5, not a great move, but he plays queen b1 in response. There's no like silly little thing where you can go here and then you can't take pin because my king's not on b8, so he can't really just do this because I would just take. And yeah, my king looks a little open, but he needs time to really do something like queen b3, rook b1. In that time, I can always go like rook f8, king d8, and just block with the queen. So that's like, all right, that's fine. Everything's fine. So I just played rook df8, knight h2, knight f4. Now I was like, okay. I actually thought I was starting to do well here because my knight is in a really great spot. I have a lot more ideas to sacrifice on h3. My dark squared bishop is a little awkward, but I'm sure it'll find a home after I play something like g4. And yeah, the computer is like, no, your position sucks. It's +1. So that's cool. But then he takes my knight. And I was like, wait, that's exactly what I want. All right, I want to keep this structure nice and intact and basically close the position down. So I thought he was helping me with that move. And you know, even though it blocks my rook, I can just move it over and it's fine. So he continues with f3, which further locks the position down. It also prevents g3, I guess, if anything, but there's just a giant hole on g3 moreover, which also opens up this small diagonal that my bishop can very easily go to. So I was like, all right, f3 doesn't look right. I should be able to start coming in real soon. Started with bishop h4. He plays rook e2, obviously getting out of the way. Rook hg1. I didn't really know which rook to put on the open file, well, semi-open file, I guess, but I don't know if it mattered too much. Knight g4 I knew was not a good move because I can just play h5 to kick it away, and he's just wasting time. So he plays knight f2. I slide my queen over. I was actually really thinking about sacrifices, but the knight on f2 actually defends h3, so I was like, maybe not, but maybe. I was also considering rook takes g2, just sack the rook. And maybe I'll get some play here with like here. So for example, oh, he has this move, I guess. But yeah, this was my idea in some weird way. I could get this to work. So queen g7, knight d3. I didn't really know what he wanted with knight d3 because there's not really much you can do here unless he wants to route back to e1, which later in the game actually becomes pretty useful, all things considered. I continue with knight d4 just to hit the rook. I'm also threatening sacrifices on f3 because this pawn is pinned. Queen d1, and here is actually the time I actually could have sacrificed with bishop h3 best move. I was starting to run low on time. I saw this, but it's like, yeah, you can't take, it's a check, but you know, he can just run away and it's fine for him. So I just settled, okay, let me just take the rook and be up my material, and I should be able to convert it from there later in the game. Moreover, even I'm up in exchange, and moreover, I just have so much pressure on his position. So I do finally take. It was better if I took right away, but you know, such is life. Now we see knight d3. Knight d3 actually comes in handy because you can defend the g2 pawn with knight e1. So naturally, I don't want this knight to be defending the g2 square, so I take it. He takes back with the rook, and now not even the best move. Queen g3 was slightly better, but I just said, okay, well, I want to take the pawn. You're about to get discovered checked. It's kind of bad. He played king h2, and he actually ran out of time here, but it's also mate in 3, which admittedly I didn't even see. I just saw queen g3, and I was like, all right, this is mate. Totally forgot queen g1 is an idea, but you know, king g1, bishop f3, and it's like, now what? It's mate in 1 regardless of what you do, so king f1 or queen g2, it is going to be mate. So boom boom or boom boom. Yeah, so overall it was like an okay attacking game. I definitely felt like this is where it started to go wrong. I would say even back to like f3. Actually, no. In my opinion, like if you didn't have a computer, I would say this was like kind of the big mistake of the game, and it's a very positional idea. Basically letting me lock up the center, giving me an open file directly to your king. f3 further worsens your position because this diagonal cuts your king off to some extent. And then, yeah, knight g4 I didn't like. I thought it was kind of a waste of time, but it actually turns out to be pretty helpful with the knight e1. Which, I mean, now that you've played f3, knight e1 is not as good because now I can just take. Alright, so moving on to game numero dos. I have the white pieces. And naturally I start with e4, but then he plays a Nimzovich defense, which is knight c6. Now, I don't actually have any notes or ideas against this. I just played knight f3 and hope they transpose into an e4, e5 position, which he does, to which I would play a Scotch, and more specifically, after they take on d4, I play the Scotch Gambit. Here he thought for a little bit and played knight f6. I instantly reacted with e5, which is the main move. Here, the main move for black is d5, counterattacking the bishop here. White does not want to play en passant because it just helps white develop. And there's not really a good reason to allow this, for example, because he just has 2 pawns in my position. So the theoretical move from white here is bishop b5, to which most people, well, you have to resolve the knight first, so knight e4 is a common move. This is very common. Take here because it's pinned. Unpin, bishop takes, and then either pawn or bishop takes. And you kind of just go from there. If bishop takes, you can even do something like this. Or you can castle first. Bishop c5, knight d2. I actually had a blitz game in this position. A USCF blitz game in this position. But anyway, after knight f6, e5, he plays knight... No, he doesn't play that. What the hell? He plays knight g4, to which I castled. This is I wouldn't call it a trap per se, but it does win material. Black cannot actually take this pawn. He does in the game, and you can't take it because of rook e1, pinning the knight to the king. And now f4 is coming, and you cannot stop f4. I guess g5. But g5 just weakens your position so much. Actually, no, I can just take right away. Never mind. He plays d5 now. I totally could have just taken... I could have taken the rook with the rook, sorry. I could have taken here right away and then done something like this. But for some reason, I thought I had to move my bishop first. So after rook e1, d5, I just played bishop b3, and his knight is still pinned and kind of stuck. He plays c6, and now I realize I can take the free knight, so I do. He plays bishop e7 to block, which makes perfect sense, and then bishop d4. You can't actually move your bishop to try to get this like pin, because your bishop is pinned. After castles, I played bishop f4. I should have just moved my bishop out of the way because bishop f6 is coming. I didn't see it for whatever reason. So I just developed because obviously I'm not letting him take my queen. Trade on e5. And after f6, I brought my bishop back to g3. I thought f6 was a weird move, but whatever. Bishop f5. And now I kind of want to like... I don't know why I thought I wanted to open the center. I guess I had the bishop pair, so that's kind of helpful. But yeah, c5 was the only move I could think of that made any sense. After he takes, I don't have to trade queens yet. I can play bishop c4. Right, check king h8. And now I was like, okay, well, I don't think I actually want to trade queens, so I'm just going to play queen c3. Protects the knight. And also the bishop. And I mean, I'm just declining the queen trade here more than anything. He plays a5, I play h3, just to not allow his bishop to come in here. Also gives my bishop an escape square if I really needed it. But a4 comes, and I'm kind of just ignoring it. Like, I don't really see a threat to his a-pawn being pushed. So I played rook e1. He offers a rook trade, to which I don't take it, but I also don't disallow it, I guess. I just played knight f3. It does defend the rook, and also just gets out of the way of this pressure on the knight anyway. So he trades rooks. I take back with the queen instead of the knight. I didn't think I want to undevelop the knight. And he falls with b5. b5 is a good move. It kind of makes my light squared bishop a little awkward. I don't want to go here because this, and I don't want to go here really because it's like, what is it doing on f1? Just staring at this pawn. So I offered a bishop trade, and if you've been paying attention to the evaluation, I'm actually worse, or not worse, but I've actually lost all of the advantage that I've had in this game, which is pretty crazy. At any rate, we trade bishops. He plays rook c8. Get my queen to played queen e4. I don't remember exactly what my idea was. Oh, I remember what my idea was. I wanted to just be cheeky. So after c5, I played bishop h5 just to like pin the pawn to the queen. And I was thinking, oh, I can be silly and like go here and try to fork and do this and like some silly stuff with this. I don't think any of it actually works in theory, but yeah, he played b4, queen c2, queen d7. And here I played knight d2, which apparently is a blunder because of c4, which he does play. In the game, I thought that this is fine. I'm just winning a pawn. But the computer says queen d4, and it's a fork. So I have to move my bishop. And then you can just play queen takes, and I'm worse. So that, I didn't see that. But after knight takes c4, he played queen f7, and after I played b3 because this is attacked twice, I played b3, take on b3, and now g5. So now, I mean, my knight's securely placed. My bishop will have an open board to kind of try to do things. I just need to get my queen out of the x-ray vision of the rook, and I'll be okay. So I move my bishop out of the way. He plays queen a7. I thought he was trying to infiltrate here. So I just played queen b2, and he follows up with queen f7. I think here he technically ran out of time, but I played knight d6, and it's really starting to get lost. You have to just like play something like this. I'll take here. And now you have to play this position. I could also even take this with check first, and yeah, I mean, what to do in this position, right? It's basically over. Yeah, so unfortunately, those are the only 2 games that I got to record. After these 2 games, I was playing a bunch of Blitz again just for fun, and I had to leave a little early again, but that's all right. So I know it was a quick recap, but I didn't really get much going today in terms of league games. At least I'm kind of undefeated, I guess. We did play a third game, which was a mainline Karo Khan, but I don't really remember much of it past the opening. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed this quick one, and hopefully Tuesday will be a little more fruitful with actually playing games, but we'll see.